Okay, so we have an excessive amount of construction, and today's my only day to record this, so we're going to record it anyway. Today I'm talking about headphones yet again, and I have another competitor to the Sennheiser HD380 Pros and the ATH M50X. Check out the BeyerDynamic DT770 Pros. Hi, my name's Oliver, and if you're new around here, I like to talk about audio for video a lot, as well as filmmaking and all things creative, and if any of that interests you, join the fam. Hit subscribe if you'd like. So I've done a few videos about headphones on this channel, and recently, in fact, and those have gained a lot of traction because headphones are a hot topic. Filmmakers want to know what type of headphone is best to mix, what type of headphone is best to listen to music or just enjoy listening to sounds. Other people want to use headphones for recording audio out in the field. And so the other day I did a shootout between the HD380 Pros and the ATH M50X. One is made by Sennheiser, one is made by Audio-Technica. Both are passive closed-back headphones with good isolation and good sound quality. Both are $150. Well, another competitor to them is the BeyerDynamic DT770 Pros. These come in 3 separate impedance, and I'll get into that in a minute, but they're all around $180, so they're in the same price family as those other 2 competitors. Now, the only other difference between the BeyerDynamic and those 2 models is the impedance. Impedance is measured in ohms, and that's the amount of electrical pressure moving through a system. You can think of it like a tourniquet on a wire. How much pressure is that electricity under? And the higher the impedance, or the more the ohms, the higher quality the sound you get on the back end of that. And the reason for that is something that I do not understand, and I won't even begin to try and explain it to you. I just learned about it, in fact. But I bought the higher impedance 250 ohm BeyerDynamic DT770 Pros, and this is really exciting because I can drive them with my Neve headphone amp. The same way I drive the HD650s, the open back headphones, with that same headphone amp. Now, first listen to these. They were the most clear closed back headphones below $200 I've ever listened to. I was immediately sucked in, and I know that headphones are good when they can make me cry, and I will tell you, these made me cry. I'm not even exaggerating. I was listening to the track Mountains from the Interstellar soundtrack, and there's like a piece in that song when like the horns and the organ all just come blasting in. And the clarity I got from these sub $200 passive headphones was so beautiful that it did reduce me to tears. It may or may not take much to reduce me to tears, but with headphones, that's how I know I'm in a good set of cans. The other thing I noticed about them is they had a really clear and nice high end, as opposed to the ATH M50X, where their high end feels a little bit forced. And I talked about that in the last video, where the high end is more pronounced than the 380s or the 280s, the Sennheisers, but it feels like it's been pushed that way. The high end on these, those high frequencies, sound really natural and really clean. And when you encounter that kind of a clean high end, you'll know the difference. It just feels more like it's real. More layers are heard in the higher end of the frequency spectrum when you're listening to music or human dialogue or anything. That was the first thing I noticed. The lower end, there was good bass. It wasn't as pronounced as the ATH M50X headphones, but I don't like bass being pumped up too hard, so I'm going to approve of those. It sounded very similar to the 380s and 280s, maybe a little bit more kick. Now, I also compared them to the consumer Sony WH-1000X Mark IIs, and those, obviously, they're great headphones. They're very expensive at $350 because of all the technology in them, the Bluetooth, the functionality, the covering the ear and allowing you to hear the outside world. All that makes those expensive. If they were just passive plug-in headphones, they'd be $50 to $80 in quality. So they're not bad. They sound great, but they're so expensive because of all those components. So the more I listen to these, the more the Sibilance became a problem. Now, Sibilance, as you know, is that kind of like S sound that we get that's between 5 and 10,000 hertz, depending on who's making the S sound or what's making the S sound. Listening to pop music, listening to rap and hip hop and just general pop music, that music is produced with really intense high end most of the time. And the Sibilance I was getting was almost harsh coming through the amp into these headphones. That was a little bit problematic. I found myself like kind of scratching my head about that, like, ooh, I don't like that at all. When I go back to the ATH M50X, That sibilance is very pronounced, like we've been talking about, but it wasn't harsh, it wasn't too much, it wasn't overbearing. So I have pushed through that sibilance issues to keep these as my main listening, mixing, and just enjoying music headphones for out in the studio in the open, because they're closed back and they help isolate me from everything that's going on in the studio. I pushed past that one issue because of all the other things about these that made them so good and so worthy of looking at. Now, if you don't have a headphone amp, you could buy the lower impedance version of this exact same headphone. Now, they do make the exact same model of headphones at 80 ohm impedance and 32 ohm impedance. That is important because it will take less power to actually drive them, but you may get less signal clarity, and I can't speak to that because I haven't tried those lower impedance versions. To give you an example of how impedant the other headphones I've been talking about are, these 650s, the open backs that I've been raving about for the last 4 to 6 months on a constant basis, have 300 ohms of impedance, so even more than the ones I'm wearing now. So that's, the higher end headphones I feel like have more impedance, more clear, clean, and nice electrically driven signal. Again, I have no idea what I'm talking about there. For example, the HD 280 Pros, the ones I gave away earlier this year that I've used for 12 years now, they're rated at 64 ohms. So to compare that to the HD 380 Pros, which were my main mix headphones for 4 years are rated at 54 ohms. And finally, the M50X, which have become my field recording headphones. I use these first and foremost when I'm out recording more than any Sennheiser, but these are rated at 38 ohms. So what does that mean for you? Nothing. Unless you really care about that level of detail, or you have something to drive a higher impedance set of headphones. So overall, I am really, really loving these BeyerDynamics. I love how they look. I love how they feel. Aesthetic is really, really important to me when it comes to a good set of headphones. Sound quality comes first, but second comes comfort, and then third, aesthetic, and they're all really high. They're coated with this nice cloth instead of the typical kind of like nylon-y or whatever the material is on your classic style of headphones, which I really like, and they have a nice sturdy build here with these metal gripping pieces that grip the cans themselves. If you are interested in buying them, a link for them is right below in the description. Click on that link and buy it. And then do all your shopping via that link. That would help me out a lot. Hopefully this construction, as they're quite literally slicing the street apart again, right outside the door, wasn't too distracting this week. And with nothing else, I will see you next week.